A bit is the most fundamental unit of information in computing. The word is short for binary digit. And a bit can hold exactly one of two possible values. It can either hold 1 or 0. And that right there is the complete definition. Everything else in this video is just unpacking why that matters. So why do we have two states? The reason why computers use two states rather than 10, like our normal number system, is when it comes down to physics and reliability. When you, for example, send an electrical signal through a wire, that signal isn't always perfectly clean. There's noise, interference, temperature, and a bunch of other variation values. If you try to encode 10 different values as 10 distinct voltage values, a small amount of noise would make it ambiguous whether a signal would say, either a 3 or a 4 when they have all this noise all around it, making it hard to read. You would get errors constantly. But if you were to only use two different states, let's say for this example, low voltage and high voltage, then now you have enormous margins. Anything below a threshold is 0, and anything above a specific threshold is 1. Noise would have to be catastrophically large in order to misread. This makes the system extremely reliable. Now there's also a hardware reason, and that's the transistor. The physical switch inside every chip is naturally a two-state device. It either allows current to flow or it doesn't, and binary maps this directly onto what transistors actually do. Now let's move on, let's talk about counting in binary. Now, our normal system is base 10, which means each digit position represents a power of 10, where it can be any value from 0 through 9, so this is 10 different possible values that it could be. And every single digit of a number, let's take the number 4,301, every single position in it represents that base of 10. So for example, this is your ones place, this is your tens, your 100s, and you get the idea all the way on. Everyone is a multiple of 10 from the last one, which means it's base 10. Now binary is base 2, so each digit position represents a power of 2. You have the 1s, the 2s, the 4s, the 8s, and the 16s. So an easier way to think about this is every position starting from the right is going to be 2 to the power of that position. So the first position we start at index 0, so this is going to be 2 to the power of 0. This next one, going to the left, is going to be 2 to the power of 1, 2 to the power of 2, and then 2 to the power of 3. Or you can think about it, you take the last one and then go times 2 to get to the next one. Either way, you're just adding a power. To read a binary number, you add up every value of the position that has a 1. So take the binary number in this example of 1101, starting from the right. So we look at this position and we say, is there a 1 here? Yes, there is. So we take the value below it and we add it to our total. So what is 2 to the power 0? We know that's just 1, so we put a 1 right here. Now the next one, we move this over and we look at this one. We say, okay, is there a 1 here? No, there's a 0, so we skip it. Now we look at the next position, we look here, is there a 1 here? There is, so we take this value and then move it down here. And that is going to be 2 to the power 2, which is 4, so we add 4. In the next position, 1, there's a 1 there, so we take 2 to the power 3 and we add it to the end. 2 to the power 3, it's going to be 4 times 2. So that's an 8. And then our total here, if we add these all up, is going to be 13. So 1101 binary is equal to 13 in our base 10. And remember, this is all base 2. And this right here that I just showed you works for any number. It's the same positional logic that you've been using since elementary school, just with the base 2 instead of 10. So your possible values are 0 through 1, not 0 through 9. Well, you might be thinking, this isn't very efficient. We had to put 4 different digits just to represent 13. So how many values can n bits represent? Well, we know that one singular bit gives you 2 possible values, either a 0 or a 1. Now, if you add in a second bit, you double the amount of possibilities. So then we go to being able to do 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. So we went from 2 possibilities to 4 possibilities, or 4 values. So we can use this to generalize it and say every additional bit doubles the count every single time. So if we multiply this out, the general formula is 2 to the power of n, where n is the number of bits that we have. So here are some common bit values that you might see. As you can see, we started with 8 bits and then we just multiplied by 2. We have 8, 16, 32, and 64. And if you look at how many possible values you can have from each one, it is an exponential growth. And that's why a small number of bits can represent an enormous range of things. Now, in practice, we rarely ever work with individual bits. We group them, and the standard grouping is the byte, which is equal to 8 bits. One singular byte can represent 256 distinct values, enough to encode any character in the basic English alphabet, digits, and common punctuation, with some extra values to spare. And this encoding system is called ASCII. Now, from bytes, we do scale up, and the next unit that we can look at is a kilobyte. So 1 kilobyte is equal to 1024 bytes. You might see this a lot on very small files on your computer, and this is represented by KB. Then the next one is 1 megabyte. This is 1024 kilobytes. This is represented by MB. Then from that, you've probably seen this one a lot. You have 1 gigabyte, which is equal to 1024 megabytes. And this is represented by GB. And then from there, the biggest one you'll probably ever see is 1 terabyte. Although there is bigger, this is most likely the biggest that you'll see. And that, of course, is 1024 gigabytes, represented by TB. Now, you'll sometimes see these defined as powers of 1000 rather than 1024, and that's a separate convention used by storage manufacturers in the SI system. But the 1024 base versions that you see right here are technically called like kilobytes and megabytes and so on, but in everyday usage, the terms are often used interchangeably. Now, you might be wondering, okay, this is great, but how does this ASCII system actually store our values in these small little zeros and ones? Well, each character is assigned a number. In ASCII, the letter A is 65, which is represented in binary as 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, in 1 byte. So this is all represented in just 1 byte, or 8 bits. Modern text uses Unicode, which supports over 140,000 characters across all writing systems, and uses up to 4 bytes per character, so a little bit more. Now, images work on a grid of pixels. Each pixel has a color, typically denoted by a value of RGB, and these 3 values are stored as 8 bits, given 256 levels per channel. 3 channels times 8 bits is 24 bits per pixel. A 12 megapixel photo has 12 million pixels in it, so the raw uncompressed data is around 36 megabytes. Now, compression formats like JPEG, other stuff like that will reduce this significantly, but this is what you can expect from an image. It's simply just a grid of RGB values stored as 8 bits for what that color actually is, giving you a wide range of colors, and that is displayed to the computer as a photo. Now, audio is a little complex, but basically analog sound is a continuous pressure wave. So to store it digitally, you sample the waves at regular intervals, measuring the amplitude as a number. A CD quality audio samples 44,100 times per second at 16 bits per sample. Playback reconstructs the wave from those samples, and at a high enough sampling rate, the human ear can't distinguish it from the original. Now, why does this actually matter in practice? Bits have a direct consequence for programming and system design. Integer overflow happens when a calculation produces a value larger than the bit width of the data type it can hold. So a signed 32-bit integer can store values up to about 2.1 billion, but if you exceed that and the value wraps around to a negative number, that is not good, and that is a big bug that is responsible for some serious failures in real software. So you can think if you were to have an 8-bit value and you were at the max value that it can hold, all of these are ones, and you go, okay, well, what's the next value after that? Well, what it's going to do is just wrap around to the backside, and we're going to loop this over, add a 1, and then we're just going to make this into a negative number. It's a little more complex, but you got to understand integer overflow is a big side consequence of this if you don't account for it. Now, floating point imprecision exists because real numbers are continuous, but bits are finite. So you can't represent every single decimal value in binary. For example, if we had the base 10 number of 3.14159 ... a number that is infinite, how are we going to represent every single infinite value in bits? You just can't, because you'll run out and that'll just take up too much. A number might be infinite, but memory isn't infinite. A more practical example is you might try to add, for example, 0.1 plus 0.2, and in the calculator you might get something back like 0.3000000, a bunch of zeros, and then like a 4 at the end. Now, in a programming language, this is the best that they can do to kind of estimate. It's not a bug, it's actually an inherent limitation of storing real numbers in a fixed number of bits. So you do have to account for this in your programs as well. Another reason why this matters to us programmers is the idea of memory and performance. Choosing between an 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, and 64-bit data types affects how much memory your program uses and how efficiently the CPU processes it. On a 64-bit processor, 64-bit operations are native and fast. Smaller types can save memory but may require extra handling. The last thing I'll touch on is the idea of encryption strength. This is a little more complex, but encryption strength is measured in the idea of bits. So a 256-bit encryption key means there are 2 to the power of 256 possible keys, and this number is actually vastly larger than the number of atoms in the observable universe. Obviously, you want this number to be as high as possible. So that's the bit. what it is, why it's binary, how it scales, and how it underpins everything from the text on your screen to the security of your data. If you guys have any questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.